the map that asked questions. Eamon built his life on tidy conclusions. As a celebrated urban planner, he had spent 30 years folding cities into diagrams, reducing messy human patterns to neat graphs and predictable growth lines. People applauded his certainty. Televised panels, white papers, municipal honors. Certainty was his blueprint. It kept chaos at bay. On a late autumn morning, a letter arrived with no sender. Inside was a single hand-drawn map of a neighborhood on the city's fringe, a place Eamon had finished years ago. The map had no streets. Instead, it marked small, ordinary things. A bench that creaked at noon, the house where a woman hung paper cranes, a tree whose roots had curled a child's bicycle. At the corner, someone had written, "Come see." Curious and a little annoyed, Eamon left his tidy office and followed the directions. He expected to confirm his plan was right. He found instead a neighborhood that stubbornly refused to fit his diagrams. Buildings had been repurposed into community gardens. A derelict lot hosted a chorus of neighbors practicing a song that changed every week. The bench creaked exactly at noon, because two old men sat there and argued about crab cakes. The paper crane house belonged to a woman named Lila, who braided stories into each crane and gave them to strangers. "You mapped this," Lila said when Eamon showed his credentials. She smiled without reverence. "You mapped routes, not lives." He realized he had come to fix what wasn't broken. His maps solved problems in models, traffic flows, zoning densities, but they ignored the small resistances and improvisations that made the place live. Lila invited him to sit while she finished folding a crane. He had no answer, only the practiced outlines of one. That afternoon, an old man came by with a mason jar of figs, a map of his own. Childish lines, names of places passed down by tongue rather than survey. "My grandson thinks everything's knowable if you draw it," the man said. "I told him the map is only an invitation." Eamon felt the neatness in his chest loosen. He tried to explain density calculations, the efficiencies he could bring. The neighborhood listened. They did not reject his knowledge, but they asked him to listen first. They told stories of a bus route that never ran on time because a driver stopped to help a girl with a flat tire, of a storefront that survived because customers left notes of gratitude on the door. Each anecdote was a wrinkle his maps had missed. That night he walked home under streetlights. For the first time in decades, he did not rehearse a solution. He thought instead about a map that could learn, not one that declared the world finished. He took out a fresh sheet and began to draw, but he filled empty spaces with questions instead of lines. Who sits here at dawn? What song grows where the pavement cracks? How does a neighborhood heal a hurt you can't quantify? Weeks later, Eamon returned to his office with a different dossier. Not a finished plan, but a layered set of annotations, neighbor interviews, contradicting notes, open-ended ideas. He published it, then added a small, stubborn paragraph at the end. "This is provisional." Editors snipped at the modesty. Citizens applauded. He kept the jar of figs on his desk. When asked why, he would shrug and say, "They remind me that some things are known only when you taste them." He stopped pretending to close the book on a place, and learned the cleaner humility of asking better questions. Certainty had once been a lighthouse. He had steered by it. Now he kept a lantern in his pocket, small and portable, and walked toward the dark parts of the map with people who taught him to listen. In that dark he found a quiet wisdom. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing.